this evening. I pray that your day is blessed and that the Lord is truly smiling on you, which we know He is. Um, I'm getting started now with we're going to be picking up on the series that I started with the other night, dealing with grief and loss. And so I'm going back to get started with that. I pray that those of you all that can join are on with us. And so I wanted tonight to pick up with symptoms in grief. I want to talk about symptoms in grief and what that looks like when we're living here in this 21st century with COVID, and how COVID is just really people are losing their lives every day still, and we still are making adjustments on how to deal with grief and being in the grieving process. And so tonight I want to talk about symptoms of grief. Understand this: while loss of people, excuse me, while loss affects people in different ways, many of us experience the following symptoms when we're grieving. Just remember this right here, that almost anything you experience in the early stages of grief is normal. Let me say that again. Just remember that almost anything that you experience in the early stages of grief is normal, including feeling like you're going crazy. Wow. You never thought you would hear somebody say that, did you? But literally, if you feel like you are going crazy when you're in the stages of grief, if you feel like you are going crazy, if you feel like you're about to lose it, that's actually normal. Feeling like you're in a bad dream is normal. Or questioning your religious or spiritual beliefs. All of this is normal. And so if you experience any of that, don't feel like there's something wrong with you. Actually, if you experience that, something's right with you. Because I told you before, grieving is a part of the natural process. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few things that we deal with. Emotional symptoms of grief. One of the emotional symptoms of grief is shock and disbelief. Shock and disbelief. Right after a loss, it can be hard to accept what happened. You may feel numb, have trouble believing that the loss really happened, or even deny the truth. I deal with many people who deal with loss and they deny that it happened. If a pet or someone you love has died, for example, you may keep expecting them to show up even though you know they're gone. And so I've had individuals say to me when they've experienced loss, that I was just looking for them to come in the room or to come through the door. And so that is an emotional symptom of grief, and it's natural. Another emotional symptom of grief is sadness. Profound sadness is probably the most universally experienced symptom of grief. You may have feelings of emptiness, despair, yearning, or deep loneliness. You may also cry a lot and feel emotionally unstable. And so sadness is an emotional symptom of grief. And listen, when you are going through your phases of grief, understand that there's nothing wrong with you. You're just actually coping with the loss. Okay? And so sadness is emotional. And we're talking about emotional. We're not talking about physical. We're not even talking about verbal. We're not even talking about spiritual. Now, spiritually, emotionally, if you stop believing or things like that, that can become spiritual. But emotionally, that is a sadness is a symptom of grief. Here's another one: guilt. Many people feel guilty. For instance, you may regret or feel guilty about things you didn't say or do. I'm going to interject and pause right here. If you're able to hear me right now and you're dealing with the loved one, they're still living, they're still here, you don't want to deal with the guilt of what you did not say or do. So here's one for you for free. Say it or do it so you don't have to deal with the grief of not. You may also feel guilty about certain feelings. Feeling relieved when a person died after a long, difficult illness. So I deal with individuals that I literally deal with individuals, more so the patient than the family member, when the patient literally says, I'm good, I'm ready to die. I've been suffering, but I've dealt with family members that when they've lost a loved one, that they say they feel bad because they feel relieved. So they feel guilty, but really that's an emotional feeling. And if you get to that place, the relief that you feel is not a relief because they're dead. A lot of times the relief that you feel is because the burden off of you and them is gone. And so you're relieved that they're not suffering. And also you're relieved, here it is, that you can get your life back to a sense of normalcy. If you've ever been a caretaker and taking care of someone that is sick, everything, your schedule totally changes. Your schedule is totally rearranged. And then if you're having to do any physical work with the individual that has lost their life. So really, the relief that you feel is not a burden on them physically. And if you keep it real, it's not a burden on you anymore physically, where you have to lift. And if you've had to clean your loved one, I know you love them and you do all that because you love them. But that relief can come in as a sense of, you know what, I'm in a better place, they're in a better place. And when I say that, I don't say that as a cliche. I'm just talking about from a physical standpoint and even emotionally. If you've taken care of a loved one or taken care of a friend or someone, think about how many nights when you finally got home or got to your bed and you just exhaled. You were like, today this is over. Today, I'll face it tomorrow, but today. And so emotionally, you're exhausted, you're tired. And so if you experience that, don't let the guilt of that make you feel like you're experiencing something that's abnormal. You're actually dealing with something that is normal. Okay, another emotional symptom of grief is fear. A significant loss can trigger a host of worries and fears. If you've lost your partner, your job, or your home, for example, you may feel anxious, helpless, or insecure about the future. You may even have panic attacks. The death of a loved one can trigger fears about your own mortality, of facing life without that person, or the responsibilities you now face alone. And so fear is a natural emotional symptom of grief. And you can, when you experience that, you can feel helpless or insecure about the future. But that's normal. And I think too many times we make abnormal stuff normal and we make normal stuff abnormal. If you love someone and you grieve, you may experience, and you may not, but it's a possibility, strong possibility, that you may experience some of these emotional symptoms. And so understand that is also a part of the process of healing or getting better for you yourself. And so those of you all that's on Facebook, I want to encourage you to share this as I'm talking about this, because one thing I can guarantee you, death is going to come. We can't get it. Ever since I've been living, I just turned 54 yesterday. And ever since I've been living, the one thing that I know that's a constant is death. That has never changed. I was born in 67 and 68. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Death. And so all my life, the one thing that's been a consistent in my life is people dying. And we're all going to die someday. We don't like to talk about it. Oh, that's a taboo. But no, we all going to die one day because somebody died today. Somebody will die tomorrow. Somebody will die the next day. What we want to do is get to a place where we learn how to deal with it. So another emotional symptom of grief is anger. Anger. Even if the loss was nobody's fault, you may feel angry and resentful. If you lost a loved one, you may be angry with yourself, God, the doctors, or even the person who died for abandoning you. Wow. Did you hear that? So sometimes people get angry and like, why did you leave me? And they go through these emotional things. You may feel the need to blame someone for the injustice that was done to you. Think about how in the Black Lives Matter and all of that, with these police officers taking lives. And so we blame the injustice system, right? Sometimes in some of the cases I've seen, the police officers were defending themselves. They had no choice. But because we've experienced so much death, we blame the injustices on the system to what was done. And so many times, rightfully so, right? Because if we had the right laws and things in place and they were being practiced fairly, then we wouldn't have to do that. But understand, you can feel angry at yourself, asking yourself questions like, what if I would have been there? Or could I have not done more? Is it something I could have done for them to still be here? Okay. I deal with many individuals that are angry with God. Wow. You know, when you think about it, you know, especially for those that are believers, and I believe that's who I'm talking to tonight, we're quick to say God gives and God takes. So if we know that, how can we blame him when he takes? The same giver takes, right? And so he has the right to take what he's given. My God, what? Ooh, I was a preacher. I feel like preaching right there. He has the right to take what he's given. And here's the caveat. He doesn't need our permission to do it. And so, but I want to help us understand that this is an emotional feeling. You can be mad at the doctors that you feel like they didn't do enough. They could have done more. And then again, even the person who died for abandoning you. You know, they left me at a time when I needed them most. They left me when we were working things out, or whatever that may be. But that is an emotional symptom of grief. So let's shift our thinking here to those were emotional feelings of grief, symptoms of grief. Now let's talk about some physical symptoms of grief. We often think of grief as strictly emotional process, but grief often involves physical problems also, including fatigue. So physically, when you're grieving, you can get very tired. Okay, nausea. You can become sick at your stomach, nauseated, lightheaded, lowered immunity. And with that, oftentimes, if you have lowered immunity, that simply means that your immune system has broken down. You may not be eating right or getting enough sleep and rest. And if you're not getting enough rest, it'll cause your immune system to break down. So when your immune system breaks down, you're more prone to catch a cold and flu and different viruses and things. That's a physical symptom of grief, weight loss or weight gain. So some people, if they are grieving physically, they may not want anything to eat. And then there's others that, as a coping mechanism, began to eat more than they normally would. So it can cause weight loss or weight gain. Excuse me. Aches and pains is another physical symptom of grief. And so headaches, you can have body aches and pain and hurting in your body because maybe you're not conscious of your posture, or you're not doing some things that you normally do, and now it causes aches and pains. And then another is insomnia. Insomnia is where you find it hard to sleep. You can't go to sleep at night. That can be because you're having so many thoughts of the individual that passed away, or pet, or whatever it may be. But you can actually have insomnia, and insomnia oftentimes is caused by stress and grief and worry. And so I've dealt with individuals that they don't want to go to sleep because if they've lost a loved one and if they don't understand death, they feel like if they go to sleep, they may not wake up. See, a lot of these things we don't even talk about because we're so busy living that we never consider dying. And then when death shows up in our loved ones, we don't know how to handle it because we haven't been taught about loss and grief. And I want to be one to do that and to do it more consistently and in a way that we can handle it. Okay. So here's some types of grief. I really want you to get this. Since the experience of grieving following the loss of someone or something important to you tends to be unique to you, it's difficult to label any type of grief as either normal or abnormal. Let me say that again. So when you're grieving, there's no such thing as normal or abnormal grief. However, there are types of griefs that fall outside the expected symptoms and reactions that we described and talked about before. So let's talk about some different types of grief. The first one that I want to talk about is called anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief. As the name suggests, anticipatory grief develops before a significant loss occurs rather than after. If a loved one is terminally ill, for example, you have an aging pet, or you know that your retirement or job loss is imminent, you may start grieving your loss before it actually happens. That's called anticipatory grief, that you're actually grieving. So let's say you have a loved one and they're still living, but you know they're not going to get better. You know that they have an expiration date. You may start grieving before they pass away. I know an individual, a gentleman that was forced into retirement, and he knew that that day was coming, and he started grieving because he knew that there was nothing he could do to change his company's mind about his job. So he started grieving. Okay. Like conventional grief, anticipatory grief can involve a mix of confusing emotions, and one of the main emotions is anger. Some people even equate it giving up hope and refuse to allow themselves to grieve before their loss has even occurred. However, anticipatory grief can also give you a chance to prepare for your loss, resolve any unfinished business, or say your goodbyes. Wow. Think about that. So if you have anticipatory grief, it may give you an opportunity before that person passes away to say your I'm sorry's, to forgive any hurt or pain. And so anticipatory grief doesn't have to always be a negative. It can be a positive also if you use it in a positive way. Another type of grief is disenfranchised grief. See, these are probably some terms y'all ain't never heard of. You know, your boy be doing some studying and some work. I want to throw some stuff at you that, you know. So disenfranchised grief. This grief can occur when your loss is devalued, stigmatized, or cannot be openly mourned. Some people may minimize the loss of a job, a pet, or a friendship, for example, as something is not worth grieving over. You may feel stigmatized if you suffered a miscarriage or lost a loved one to suicide. Okay, so you may be mad, you may be upset, and you disenfranchise that grief by telling yourself, even though you may be grieving, you may be telling yourself you're not going to grieve openly or whatnot because this was not worth grieving over. Disenfranchised grief can also occur when your relationship to a deceased is not recognized. Some people may consider it inappropriate to grieve for a work colleague, classmate, or neighbor. For example, as a close friend or a same-sex partner, you may be denied the same sympathy and understanding as a blood relative. This can make it even more difficult to come to terms with your loss and navigate the grieving process. That's deep, because think about it. Let's say that you're in a relationship with someone, friendship or whatever, and they pass away. And let's say the family won't let you see them or won't let you be a part of what's going on, that others in that grieving process. From that, you can just start convincing yourself, well, it wasn't worth grieving over anyway, although you're grieving. That's called disenfranchised grief. Another type of grief is complicated grief. The pain at a significant loss may never completely disappear, but it should ease up over time. When it doesn't, and it keeps you from resuming your daily life and relationships, it may be a sign of complicated grief. Complicated grief usually arises from the death of a loved one, where the loss has left you stuck in a state of bereavement. You may be unable to accept your loved one has gone. You search for them in familiar places, experiences intense longing, or even feel that life isn't worth living. Here's my suggestion. If you're experiencing complicated grief and the pain from your loss remains unresolved, it is important to reach out for support and take the steps that will enable you to heal. Parents that have lost a child experience complicated grief. Spouses may experience complicated grief where they find that they just can't get over it. And that word says it. Complicated grief is complicated because at some time, over a period of time, the pain of it should ease somewhat. And if that's not happening, you need to get the help you need for you to be okay. Anybody have any questions or comments so far as I talk about these areas of grief and loss? Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, Pastor C. Yeah, out of all the types of grief, that anticipatory, yeah, I just really see that being as a positive, like you said, because it actually prepares you, for anything that may go down. Out of all the three that you named, that seemed like to me would be one that would be a plus for sure.
Yeah, and Minister Curry, it all goes back to how the individual deals with it. And so, if you deal with it in a positive way to allow you to, finish what I like to call unfinished business, then that's a positive. So you don't have to, you don't have to grieve the loss that way. And so we want to make sure that as we deal with the grief, that we're able to get some healing, because it's crucial to definitely get that. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you for sharing that. Seeking support for grief and loss. The pain of grief can often cause you to want to withdraw from others and retreat into your shell. But having face-to-face support of other people is vital to healing from loss. Even if you're not comfortable talking about your feelings under normal circumstances, it is important to express them when you're grieving. While sharing your loss can make the burden of grief easier to carry, that doesn't mean that every time you interact with friends or family, you need to talk about your loss. Comfort can also come from just being around others who care about you. The key thing that you don't want to do when you're grieving is you don't want to isolate yourself. The enemy will take advantage of that, and depression, and when you're not around people, it can be very unhealthy and very scary and dangerous. And so what you don't want to do is isolate yourself. Turn to friends and family members. Now is the time to lean on the people who care about you, even if you take pride in being strong and self-sufficient. Rather than avoiding them, draw friends and loved ones close. Spend time together face to face and accept the assistance that's offered. Often people who want to help but don't know how. So tell them what you need, whether it is a shoulder to cry on, a listening ear, or just someone to hang out with. If you don't feel you have anyone you can regularly connect with in person, it's never too late to build new friendships. And so that's crucial. And here it is. I always talk about not assuming anything. If you need help and you don't tell anybody, don't get mad because they don't know. And I want to say that one more time, loud and clear, and in English. If you don't say what you need, don't get mad at people for not knowing. It is nobody's job to try to read your mind and to try to guess what you're going through. And here's the deal. Let's say they're guessing what you need and they keep missing it. Wouldn't it just be easier if you told them so they could hit it? What if they get it right 5 times, wrong 5 times? Wouldn't it be easier if you just told them so they could get it right one time? And so turn to friends and family members. And if you don't have that, that's a great time to start finding some new people in your life, because we all want people in our life that can help us be better. When you're seeking support for grief and loss, accept that many people feel awkward when trying to comfort someone who's grieving. That's crucial. Grief can be confusing, sometimes frightening, a frightening emotion for many people, especially if they haven't experienced a similar loss themselves. They may feel unsure about how to comfort you and end up saying or doing the wrong things. But don't use that as an excuse to retreat into your shell and avoid social contact. If a friend or loved one reaches out to you, it's simply because they care. Wow. And so sometimes if people have not experienced, let's say, losing a parent, and you lost a parent, if they haven't experienced that, they may not say the right thing. But charge it to their head, as the old folks say, and not their heart. Their intentions are right, their words just may be wrong. And so understand that. But if you get that and you just feel like you don't want to be around people, then understand this. The reason they reached out to you was not to hurt you, was not to confuse you. They reached out to you because they love you. Now, there may be some hurt that comes as a result of that, but that is never the intention. And if you have somebody that's their intent, go find someone that their intent is to help you in your healing process. But that's crucial that you understand that a lot of times when you're trying to when somebody's trying to comfort someone that's experiencing grief or loss, sometimes it can be very awkward because they don't know what to say. And so I'm going to make a suggestion to you. If you don't know what to say, be cool saying nothing. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just sit there with the individual and just let them know. It's kind of like when I was dating my wife, and we used to go to the club together. And I used to tell her when we went to the club, I'm going to be close enough to you that if you need me, but far enough away that I won't smother you. So like if her song came up, she wanted to dance, I'm close enough that if you raise your hand, then I'll see you and I'll come and dance. But I'm going to be far enough away that if you want to interact with your girlfriends and the girls you came with and whatnot, I'm not going to smother you. So think about it like that when you're dealing with somebody with grief. I'm going to be close enough that if you need me, I'm here, but far enough away that I don't smother you. Wow, that's powerful. Because especially if you don't know what to say. Saying nothing says a lot. Sometimes when you don't say one word, that's more than the few words you ever could have said. And so you have to be comfortable helping individuals know that in your grieving process, I'm close enough that if you need me, you get my attention, I'm here, but I'm just back enough, I'm giving you enough space so I don't smother you and make you feel uncomfortable. Anybody have any questions or comments before I go on about that right there? Yes, Miss Felicia.
Well, I had a comment in regards to seeking support. For some people, it's difficult because for some people, they have been groomed, if you will, for lack of better wording, to believe that they have to always be strong. Or for some of them, maybe they are that person in their family or their community. So people are always leaning on them, and therefore, when grief comes, it's difficult It's not that they don't want the help, but they may not know how to articulate it because they are not accustomed to being in that position.
That's a great statement, and if you remember Monday when we talked about this, let me just take it further for tonight and what you said. Thank you for saying that because that's so powerful. I think at some point, and I want you all to hear me say this in the spirit that it's given. At some point, you have to make up in your mind what you need for you. You know, I was one of those people that, I wanted to carry the weight of the world, and I wanted to help everybody else be okay. And one morning I woke up and realized I was not okay. And so, as Angel said on Monday night, you have to be okay not being okay. And you have to say that. And you have to believe that. And you have to, at some point, because here's what I see a lot, Miss Felicia, with people that are real strong. At some point, they show their weakness by complaining about their strength. So at some point, they'll say, I've been strong for everybody. Well, you're complaining now about the thing that you do because you didn't ask for the help that you need. And so ask for the help that you need, and don't be ashamed to do that, because you'll come to realize, those of you all, if you're that person that's strong and you have to be strong for everybody else, even a kryptonite broke down Superman. And so there's things in your life that will break you down. And it's better to know when you're not healthy so you can have an opportunity to get healthy instead of trying to act like you're healthy when you're not. It's a bad thing when you act like you're strong and you're not, because then you will break down in a way that you didn't want people to see you, opposed to saying, I need help down through here also, and people can receive that, and then they'll say to you, you know what? You're always strong for everybody else. Let us be strong for you. You can lean on me. You can have a conversation with me. But that is a great point that you make, Felicia, because oftentimes people that are always the comforter, that's always the backbone, that's always the strength, they don't know how to ask for what they need. And I'm telling you tonight, humble yourself. And if you need help, if you need encouragement, if you need strength, prayerfully, there's somebody in your circle that you can go to and say, you know what, I just don't feel strong. I don't have it. And I just need to release and have somebody to talk to and share with. So thank you for sharing that. Draw comfort from your faith. If you follow a religious tradition, embrace the comfort its morning rituals can provide. Spiritual activities that are meaningful to you, such as praying, meditating, or going to church, can offer solace. If you are questioning your faith in the wake of a loss, talk to a clergy member or others in your religious community to help you make it through that season. Because sometimes when you're grieving or dealing with loss, your mind can and times will play tricks on you. And so it'll cause you to question your faith. It may cause you to question your belief system. It may cause you to question God. But before you die in questions, let's live in answers. So ask the question, and hopefully you have someone that can provide the answers and the strength you need for you to be okay. There's some people that are in the grieving process, and they lost loved ones years ago, and they found it hard to go to the place. So for instance, if they went to the church with the loved one, they find it hard to go back to church because that person is not there. Or they find it hard to move on. But talk to your clergy, your pastor, your leaders in your church, and help them help you with comforting in times of grief and loss. You know, of all the topics I've taught over the years, I think I'm getting more pleasure and benefit out of this, because this is something that we really never talk about. But we expect everybody to know what's going on and how to deal with it. Beware of how you use social media when you're grieving and have suffered a loss. Social media can be useful in letting others know about your loss and reaching out for support. However, it can also attract internet trolls who post inappropriate, insensitive, or even abusive messages. To spare yourself additional pain and heartache at this time, you may want to limit your social media use to closed groups and rather than public postings that can be commented on by anyone. I want you to get that. So if you experience a loss, let me tell you, there are some people that are sitting on social media and they are waiting to make you feel worse than what you feel. And we think everybody on there, we wanted the message to get out to our friends and our family, and they're going to love us and support us. It is some mean, nasty people on social media. And they are looking for an opportunity to cause you even more grief. And so if you have closed groups and whatnot, then you may want to share your information there. But you be careful what you put on social media in public, because there are some people that, I kid you not, I was looking at some individuals that had lost loved ones, and they posted it, and I literally read comments like, I wish they would have died sooner, or you deserve them to die, or they didn't have anything worth living for, or why are you crying, why are you grieving, they wasn't nothing anyway. I've literally read comments like this. That's painful, it's ugly, it's nasty, but it's real. And so be mindful how you use social media when you're grieving or suffering a loss. So I want to talk about taking care of yourself. Excuse me, I grabbed the wrong slide here. Where did I go? Taking care of yourself as you grieve. When you're grieving, it's more important than ever to take care of yourself. The stress of a major loss can quickly deplete your energy and emotional reserves. Looking after your physical and emotional needs will help you get through this difficult time. Okay, so take care of yourself, and I've kind of hit on that, but you have to take care of yourself, and you have to know when you're not taking care of yourself, right? Okay, you have to know, I'm not eating right, I'm not exercising, whatever it is you need to do for you to be okay, do that. Another way to take care of yourself is face your feelings. You can try to suppress your grief, but you can't avoid it forever. In order to heal, you have to acknowledge the pain. Trying to avoid feelings of sadness and loss only prolongs the grieving process. Unresolved grief can also lead to complications such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and health problems. Listen, face it until you make it. Don't fake it until you make it, but face it until you make it. Face your feelings. Be real about how you feel. If you're sad, say I'm sad. If you're depressed, say I'm depressed. Sometimes we get so heavenly bound, we're no spiritually good. And so sometimes we'll say things to try to make everybody else feel good and we feel bad. But no, if you're not feeling well, say, I'm not feeling well. I don't feel good about this. So you can get the help that you need. Express your feelings in a tangible and creative way. Even if you're not able to talk about your loss with others, it can help to write them down. Write down your thoughts or feelings in a journal, for example, or you could release your emotions by making a scrapbook or volunteering for a cause related to your loss. Just do something. Try to maintain your hobbies and interests. There's comfort in routine and getting back to the activities that bring you joy and connect you closer to others. This can help you come to the terms with your loss and aid in the grieving process. And so I know when my father passed away, the most important thing for me to do was get back to the gym. I wanted to work out because I didn't want my mind to be just so occupied about the loss. So I had to try my best to stay into a normal routine. And it was amazing. The people in the gym that knew me and knew my father and knew that he had passed away, the comfort that I got in the gym was as healing as I got with family members and friends. So I was working out, doing something, releasing stress, and also being encouraged. So it helped me to stay in a normal routine. Don't let anyone tell you how to feel, and don't tell yourself how to feel either. Your grief is your own, and no one else can tell you when it's time to move on or get over it. Let yourself feel whatever you feel without embarrassment or judgment. It's okay to be angry, to yell at the heavens, to cry or not to cry. It's also okay to laugh, to find moments of joy, and to let go when you are ready. Wow. That's powerful. Don't let nobody tell you how to feel, and don't tell yourself how to feel. And whatever emotions you have at the time when you're grieving or dealing with loss, let the emotions run. Look after your physical health. The mind and body are connected. When you feel healthy, physically, you'll be able to cope emotionally. You'll be able to combat stress and fatigue by getting enough sleep, eating right, and exercising. Don't use alcohol or drugs to numb the pain of grief or lift your mood artificially, because what goes up must come down. And you may be high, but when you land, you still have to deal with what you have to deal with. And the last one I want to help you with, plan ahead for grief triggers. Anniversaries, holidays, and important milestones can reawaken painful memories and feelings. Be prepared for an emotional wallop and know that it's completely normal. You can plan ahead by making sure that you're not alone, for example, or by making your loss by marking your loss in a creative way. So you may tell yourself, this anniversary is coming up and I'm going to celebrate their day instead of be grieving over it. Invite some friends over and we tell good stories or positive things about the individual. So it's a celebration and not a destruction moment. Okay. We got 3 minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns? Thank y'all so much for allowing me to share this. I pray that it blessed you. Yes, Minister Curry.
Yes, sir. I think on Monday night on the stages of grief, I think you said the 5, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and the highest one is acceptance. And my question is it possible to go maybe halfway into acceptance and fall back down to a lower place?
It is.
Is it okay?
It is.
Is that a common thing?
It is. Because when you're dealing with acceptance, something may happen in that moment to make you accept the loss, and then all of a sudden you may have a trigger at the same time, and now you revert back, right? And so that is normal. That does happen, and sometimes people start the grieving process all over again from that right there. Okay, the denial and the bargain and all of that. But yeah, that can and does happen. Great question. Anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns before we are ushered back into the worship service?
Great lesson.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for coming on. Angel, we're praying for you and your friends, and we already claim in the name of Jesus that it's all well. In Jesus' name. I love you to life. Oh, I love you. And Heavenly and your other friends, just know you all are in our prayers. And they've just told me to let's get back to the main room. I love you guys. Thank y'all so much. And there's more of this to come because I think this is really important. I'm going to be talking. Yes, ma'am.
I was just saying thank you.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Very important topic. Of course, yes, you're welcome.
All right. We're headed to the main room. Love you guys.
Okay, love you.
Those of you all that's on Facebook and Church app or however you may be on, I want to thank you so much for being on. I pray that this lesson bless you. Please share this. We are in a season of grieving and grief, and I just want to be able to help us understand that what we feel is normal, and we shall survive this also. God bless you, and may the Lord keep you is our prayer.